Her kind fed on fear, but the human's courage made the alien Huntress tremble instead. The jungle exhaled poison in the twilight hours, and Shakara tasted it on her tongue like wine. Bioluminescent spores drifted through the canopy, painting the darkness in shades of blue and violet that would blind most species. She moved through the maze of massive trunks with fluid grace, her body a shadow among shadows, hunger gnawing at her gut with familiar teeth. 3 cycles since her last proper feeding. The ambient fear from the jungle's lesser predators barely sustained her anymore, thin gruel for a body built to feast. But the ship's crash had drawn her from the cave system she called home, metal screaming through atmosphere like wounded prey. Technology meant intelligence. Intelligence meant fear. She crouched on a branch thick as a landing platform and examined the crater below. The vessel had carved a wound through the forest, leaving a trail of scorched earth and twisted vegetation. Human design she recognized from the angular hull plating. She'd encountered their kind twice before in the outer systems. Both times they'd provided excellent sustenance before she killed them. The survivor's trail led northeast, marked by broken branches and disturbed moss. Fresh, hours old at most, she dropped from the canopy and landed in a crouch, claws sinking into the soft earth. The tracks showed purpose, no stumbling, no panic circles. Whoever walked this path moved with intention despite the crash. Shakara followed the trail with practiced ease, her sensory organs tasting the air for the chemical signature of fear. Instead, she found something else: sweat, blood, the metallic tang of human biology, but no terror. Curious. Perhaps shock had dulled their survival instincts. The first test came naturally. The human had chosen a path through a grove of whipvines, those beautiful blue tendrils that secreted contact paralytic. Most off-worlders stumbled into them blind. She watched from above as the figure, male she noted from his build, navigated the hanging death with careful precision. He paused before each cluster, studying the pattern of growth, then moved through the gaps with economical grace. No fear scent bloomed, just focus. Shakara's stomach clenched with hunger and something else. Irritation, perhaps. She'd never tracked prey that didn't react to danger. She descended lower, matching his pace through the branches, close enough now to observe details. Dark hair, cropped short. Combat vest, standard issue, but well-maintained. He carried his rifle with the casual competence of someone who'd held weapons longer than some species lived. When he stopped to drink from his canteen, she saw the scars. They covered his visible skin in a roadmap of violence, burns on his forearms, what looked like shrapnel marks across his jaw. This was a survivor then, someone who'd faced death before and lived. She decided to escalate. The ridge crawler's nest was 200 meters ahead. She'd mapped this territory thoroughly during her exile, knew every predator's hunting ground. The 6-legged apex hunter would view any intruder as competition. When the human's path took him past the territorial marker stones, Shakara settled in to watch the show. The ridge crawler erupted from its camouflaged den with a shriek that could shatter eardrums. 3 meters of plated muscle and snapping mandibles, it charged with the speed that made it this jungle's undisputed killer. The human dropped into a crouch, brought his rifle up, and put 3 rounds through the creature's skull in the space between heartbeats. The ridge crawler crashed dead at his feet, momentum carrying it close enough that its blood spattered his boots. He stepped over the corpse and kept walking. Shakara's claws dug into bark hard enough to leave gouges. Where was the fear? The adrenaline spike, the rabbit-fast heartbeat, the delicious scent of a prey animal facing death? She should be tasting it from here, should be drunk on the residue of his terror. Instead, nothing. Her species had a word for prey that showed no fear. Broken. Damaged in some fundamental way that made them inedible, worthless. But he wasn't broken. His movements were too precise, his responses too calculated. He functioned perfectly. He simply didn't fear. She tracked him for another hour, watching him navigate a collapsing ravine without hesitation, sidestep a hunter pod ambush like he'd seen it coming, and treat every mortal danger this planet offered with the same measured, tactical response. By the time the sun began its descent and the jungle's nocturnal killers woke, Shakara could barely stand. Hunger had become agony, a grinding emptiness that made her vision blur at the edges. The human made camp in a defensible position where 3 massive root systems created a natural alcove. He set proximity sensors, cleared sightlines, rationed food with military efficiency. Watching him work, Shkara realized he'd been a soldier once, probably still was. She'd had enough of observation. Shkara dropped from the canopy directly into his campsite, landing in a predator's crouch with her claws extended and her lips peeled back from her teeth. Every part of her biology was designed to inspire terror. The red glow of her eyes, the obsidian sharpness of her horns, the barely contained violence in her coiled muscles. The human looked up from his ration pack, assessed her for exactly 2 seconds, then set the food aside and stood. His hand moved to his sidearm, not drawing, just resting on the grip. "You're the local apex predator," he said, his voice carrying the flat calm of a threat assessment. "I'm tracking for extraction about 40 kilometers northeast. I don't want your territory. But if you're hungry, you're going to have to work for it." Shkara's world tilted. He'd spoken to her, recognized intelligence, and still, no fear. The absence of it hit her like a physical blow, the hunger surging so violently she staggered. Her legs went weak, her vision darkening at the edges. She lunged anyway, desperation overriding strategy. Her claws found air. He'd moved, not away, but inside her guard, one arm coming up to redirect her momentum while his legs swept her foundation. She hit the ground hard, the impact driving what little air remained from her lungs. Before she could recover, he was there, knee on her chest, rifle aimed at her face with steady hands. Then his expression changed, not to fear, she'd have tasted that, but to something worse, concern. "You're starving," he said, and she hated that he was right. Shkara tried to throw him off, but her strength was gone. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was the human holstering his weapon and reaching for her neck. Not to strangle, but to check her pulse. She woke to firelight and the smell of cooked meat. Her hands were bound, professionally, with the kind of knots that tightened if you struggled, but she was alive. The human sat across the fire, watching her with those steady eyes. "I gave you water," he said, gesturing to the canteen by her side. Shkara tested her bonds, found them secure, and forced herself to think through the gnawing hunger. The word came out as a rasp. "Why what? Why help? I tried to kill you." He shrugged, firelight casting shadows across the scars on his face. "You collapsed. That's a medical emergency, not a threat." "I am a threat. Maybe when you're fed. Right now, you're leverage." He pulled a small device from his vest, a distress beacon. "I need to reach extraction. You know this planet. We can help each other, or I can leave you tied up and let the jungle sort you out. Your choice." She should refuse, should spit defiance and accept death, but the hunger made that impossible, and something else stayed her tongue, curiosity. "Untie me," she said. "Not yet. First you tell me what you are and what you need to survive, then we negotiate." Shkara met his eyes across the fire, and for the first time in 3 cycles, she felt something other than hunger. She felt the warm glow beneath her skin beginning to pulse, faint gold patterns tracing along her arms, her throat, the edges of her face. They'd been dormant since her exile. These marks her kind only showed in one circumstance. The human noticed, his gaze sharpening. "What's that?" Shkara looked down at her own body betraying her, at the mating marks that only appeared for those her species deemed worthy, those too strong to be dominated, too fearless to be controlled. In all her cycles, she'd never shown these marks. "It means," she said slowly, each word bitter truth, "that we have a problem." Dawn broke over the jungle in shades of amber and gold. Derek Rourke hadn't slept. He'd kept watch while his prisoner lay bound across the fire, those gold patterns on her skin, pulsing with a rhythm that seemed to match her breathing. "We should talk," he said, breaking the silence. "You should release me," she countered. "That's not talking. That's demanding." He poured water from his canteen into his cookpot. "I meant what I said last night. I need guidance through this jungle. You need food. We can help each other." "I feed on fear," she said flatly. "You don't produce any." "So I've been told." Derek stirred the soup. "But you're not dead yet, which means you've been surviving on something." She was quiet for a long moment. Ambient fear from the jungle's predators, it's inadequate. But it keeps you alive. Barely. He nodded, processing. Tell me about your people. My species is called the Drevath, she said finally. We are apex predators. We evolved on a world where fear was the most abundant resource. Our biology adapted to harvest it. And the marks? Her silence stretched long. Then, quietly, mating recognition. My species pairs through dominance. The strong claim the weak through conquest. But there's a failsafe in our biology, a genetic memory from when we were prey ourselves. A recognition system for equals, Derek said. For those who show no fear, she corrected. It's supposed to be extinct. I never expected to be one of them. And I'm guessing your people don't approve. They execute those who show them. The marks are considered a weakness. Derek poured the soup, let it cool. When did you last feed properly? 17 cycles ago, before I was exiled. Exiled for what? Her claws flexed against the restraints. I refused to hunt younglings. There was a colony world, primitives, barely into their industrial age. My hunting pack was sent to cull them. Children are considered the finest delicacy. Derek's hand tightened on his rifle. And you refused? I refused. I was outvoted. I watched my pack slaughter infants while their parents screamed. The gold patterns flared brighter. When we returned home, I challenged the hunt leader. I lost. They gave me a choice, exile or execution. To a planet that would kill you slowly. To a planet where I wouldn't have to hear children scream. They sat in silence while Derek processed that. I'm going to untie you, he said. Her eyes snapped to his. Why? Because anyone who'd choose exile over murdering kids deserves a chance. He pulled out his combat knife. But if you attack me, I will put you down. Clear? Clear, she said quietly. He cut the bonds. She sat up slowly, rubbing her wrists. I'm Derek Rourke, he said, offering her the soup. She took it carefully. Shkara. He pulled out his map display, a holographic overlay showing terrain features. My extraction point is here, 43 kilometers northeast. How long? Shkara leaned forward, studying the map. 5 days if we take the river route through the Ven'shar territory. Lower risk overall. The Ven'shar are territorial but predictable. Deference meaning? Offerings, fear preferably, but they'll accept meat if necessary. Derek nodded slowly. We go with your route, he said. But you travel point, I'll follow at 25 meters. You guide, I navigate, and you can feed on whatever we encounter. Deal? Shkara studied him with those unsettling red eyes. You're trusting me to lead you true. You didn't lie about refusing to hunt children. You could have said anything to get free, but you told me the truth. He started breaking down his camp. Besides, if you wanted me dead, there are easier ways. You give trust easily. No, Derek said quietly. I don't, but I recognize honor when I see it, regardless of what species it comes wrapped in. The gold patterns flared brighter, and Shkara looked away quickly. They moved through the jungle in careful synchronicity. She called out hazards, unstable ground, toxic plants, predator signs, and he cataloged the information. By midday, they'd encountered their first major obstacle, a ravine cutting across their path, too wide to jump. There's a bridge, she said. The vane trees grow across the gap about 200 meters north. They found the natural bridge exactly where she'd promised. The massive trees had grown toward each other across the ravine, their root systems tangling into a walkway. Shkara crossed first, moving with confidence. Derek followed more carefully. Halfway across, his boot slipped on moss. His hand shot out, catching a root, but for one heart-stopping moment he dangled over the 50-meter drop. Shkara was there instantly, her clawed hand locking around his wrist. She hauled him back onto the bridge, and they stood chest to chest. Derek's heart hammered. You were afraid, she whispered. Just for a moment, Derek said. I felt it, tasted it. Her voice held wonder. It was like fire on my tongue. Did you feed? I couldn't help it. Your fear, it's different, stronger. She searched his eyes. How do you feel fear without being ruled by it? Training, Derek said, though his voice was rougher than he intended. It's magnificent, she breathed. The words hung between them, intimate and dangerous. Derek became aware that her hand was still on his wrist. "We should keep moving," he said. Shakara released him immediately. She turned and continued across the bridge without another word, but the gold patterns on her skin pulsed like a heartbeat. They made camp that night in a clearing. Derek set up his shelter while she disappeared into the darkening jungle, returning with wood for the fire and edible fungi. "For you," she said, dropping them near his pack. They ate in companionable silence. "I fed today. When you slipped, it was barely anything, but it helped." "The marks," he said carefully. "What happens if you ignore them?" "Nothing. They'll fade eventually once we part ways." "And if we don't part ways?" Shakara's eyes snapped to his. "Why would you ask that?" "Because I'm trying to understand the situation." She was quiet for a long time. If the marks are acknowledged, if both parties accept them, they become permanent. A bond forms, not just biological, but neurological. I would be able to sense your location, your emotional state. We would become paired. Like marriage. Like something more permanent. Breaking the bond would require one of us to die. Derek absorbed that. And you'd be killed if you returned to your people. "Yes, so you're alone either way." "Yes," she said, and this time he heard the loneliness beneath the word. "We should rest," Derek said finally. Shakara nodded and moved to the far side of the clearing, but Derek lay awake long after she'd settled, watching the way firelight played across her dark skin and those glowing gold marks. The Ven'shar border was marked by bones. They hung from the trees in intricate patterns, bleached white by sun and time, clacking together in the humid breeze. Skulls of 100 different species formed the perimeter. "Stay behind me," Shakara said, her voice pitched low. "Don't show aggression, and whatever happens, don't run." Derek nodded. 3 days of travel had established a rhythm between them. She hunted and guided, he navigated and made camp, and they carefully didn't discuss the way her gold patterns grew brighter. Shakara stepped through the bone barrier with her hands visible and empty, her posture submissive. She made a low, chittering sound and waited. Then they emerged from the shadows, creatures that looked like a nightmare fusion of praying mantis and wolf, their segmented bodies covered in moss-green chitin. 6 of them, each nearly 3 meters tall, surrounded them. The largest one stepped forward, its mandibles clicking. Shakara responded in kind, her voice taking on harmonics Derek hadn't known she could produce. The exchange lasted several minutes. Finally, the Ven'shar leader gestured with one-bladed foreleg. Shakara bowed her head and moved forward, Derek following carefully. They walked for an hour through territory that grew increasingly strange. The trees here were wrong, their bark glistening with secretion, their leaves moving in patterns that suggested awareness. The leader brought them to a clearing dominated by a massive tree, its trunk hollowed into a cathedral-like space. Inside, arranged on platforms, was a cache of supplies: survival gear, weapons, medical supplies. The leader chittered something sharp, and Shakara responded carefully. Then she turned to Derek. "They want tribute, fear or flesh, but they're curious about you. They want to know what you'll offer." Derek studied the Ven'shar leader, noting the intelligence in those faceted eyes. "Tell them I offer knowledge," he said. Shakara's eyes widened. "Rourke, tell them." She translated. Derek unslung his pack and pulled out his map display. He activated it, showing the 3-dimensional terrain projection. "This is your territory," Derek said, letting Shakara translate. "These are the territories of your rivals, the Razorbeaks to the north, the Tunnel Borers to the east." He zoomed in on a section northeast. "There's a Razorbeak nesting ground here that's encroaching on your border. They'll be vulnerable during breeding season, which starts in approximately 2 weeks. If your people wanted to expand your territory, that would be the optimal time." The clearing went silent. The Ven'shar leader stared at the display, then at Derek. The leader clicked a long pattern. "It says your knowledge is acceptable tribute. It also says you're either very brave or very stupid." "Tell it I'm practical," Derek said. More clicking. "It says we may pass freely. It also says you should return someday. The Ven'shar remember their friends." That was either brilliant or insane, Shakara said as they left. Both, probably, Derek admitted. But it worked. You just made a strategic alliance with a species that hasn't had contact with humans before. I had a good teacher in recognizing honor regardless of what species it comes wrapped in. The gold patterns flared so bright they were visible even in daylight. Shakara looked away quickly. They traveled through Ven'shar lands without incident. By evening of the 4th day since they'd met, they were camping at the border's far edge, the extraction point now just 2 days away. He was cleaning his rifle when Shakara returned from her evening hunt. She moved differently tonight, more agitated. "We need to talk," she said abruptly, but Derek set the rifle aside. "Your conditioning, the neural suppression. You said it was failing." "That's right. How much has it failed?" "How long have you known?" he asked quietly. Shakara sat down across from him. "Since the bridge, I tasted your fear, and it was complete. Not a fragment breaking through suppression, but genuine terror that you controlled through will alone. The scars on the back of my head aren't from surgery. They're from an explosion, IED strike on my unit 2 years ago. I was the only survivor." "You froze," Shakara said. "You froze and they died. I was point man. I saw the device too late. The blast threw me clear, but everyone else, he stopped. Afterward, I couldn't function. So I told people I'd gotten neural conditioning, that I couldn't feel fear anymore. It was easier than admitting I'd just buried it. But it does exist. Every moment of every day, I'm terrified most of the time. I just don't let it control me." Shakara was staring at him. "Do you understand what that means? That I'm a coward pretending to be brave?" "No," she leaned forward, and the gold patterns were blazing now. "It means you're genuinely courageous. My entire species has it wrong. We thought fearlessness was strength. But you feel everything and act anyway. That's true power. All these days, I've been trying not to feed on you. But you can. You're radiating it right now. Every time we've faced danger, you've been afraid. And every time, you've done what needed to be done anyway." She moved closer. "That's what these marks recognize, not the absence of fear, the mastery of it." "I'm not strong," Derek said. "That's the same thing." Shakara reached out slowly. When he didn't pull back, she placed her hand over his heart. "Your heart is racing," she said softly. "Are you afraid right now?" "Yes," he admitted. "Of what?" "Of this, of what it means. But I won't ask this of you. The choice has to be yours. If you want to reach extraction and never see me again, I'll guide you there. No obligation." "And if I don't want that?" "The gold patterns pulse so bright they cast shadows." "Then you'd have to accept a bond that can't be broken. You'd never be truly alone again. It would mean leaving your species space, because if my people find us, they'll kill us both." "Sounds lonely," Derek said. "It would be," Shakara agreed, "unless we were together." "If we do this," he said carefully, "we do it properly, no half measures. We trust each other's strengths and forgive each other's weaknesses. Deal?" Shakara's breath hitched. "Deal." Derek reached up and pulled her down to him. Their lips met, and it was nothing like kissing a human. He felt her shudder, felt the gold patterns flare, and then something else, a warmth spreading through his nervous system. When they broke apart, Derek could feel her, not just physically, but somewhere deeper, a presence in his mind. "I can feel you," he said, awed. "The bond is forming." The jungle around them erupted in warning cries. Derek's combat instincts kicked in. He rolled, putting Shakara behind him, his hand finding his rifle. The new arrival stood at the edge of their camp, larger than Shakara by half, her red eyes burning with fury. "Vrath'kar," Shakara breathed, and Derek heard genuine fear in her voice for the first time. "Hello, weakling," the newcomer said, her gaze raked over them. "Bonding with prey? The council sent me to clean up this embarrassment." Shakara stood slowly, positioning herself between Derek and the threat. "I was exiled. My life is my own now." "Your life stopped being your own when you showed those marks," Vrath'kar snarled. "You're contaminated." Derek's rifle was already aimed at her center mass. "I don't want to fight you," he said evenly. Vrath'kar laughed. She moved, faster than Derek had thought possible. His finger tightened on the trigger, but she'd already closed the distance, her clawed hand striking the rifle from his grip. Then Shakara was there, intercepting Vrath'kar's follow-up strike. The two Drevath collided in a savage close-quarters brawl. Derek rolled for his rifle, came up firing. The rounds caught Vrath'kar in the shoulder, but she barely seemed to notice. She backhanded Shakara hard enough to send her crashing into a tree. Vrath'kar charged, and Derek rolled under her strike, came up running, leading her toward the drop-off he'd marked during their arrival. The ravine was 50 meters away. Vrath'kar was faster. She caught him 10 meters from the edge, her claws sinking into his shoulder, spinning him around. "Any last words, little prey?" "Yeah," Derek gasped. "You're standing in a whipvine grove." Vrath'kar's eyes widened. She looked up at the blue tendrils hanging above them. Shakara, bleeding and limping but still fighting, grabbed a branch and snapped it. The whipvines dropped their payload. Vrath'kar screamed as the paralytic hit her skin. She tried to run, managed 3 steps before her legs gave out. She collapsed, her body seizing. Within seconds, she was frozen, only her eyes able to move. Derek stumbled back, his shoulder bleeding freely. Shakara was at his side immediately. "Are you hurt?" she demanded. "I'm fine, you?" "I'll heal, but we need to move. Where she found us, others can follow." "What about her?" They both looked at Vrath'kar, paralyzed on the jungle floor. "Leave her," Shakara said flatly. "The jungle will take care of her before she wakes." "That's a death sentence." "She came to kill us." "No," Derek interrupted. He walked to where Vrath'kar lay. "You came to kill us because your council ordered it. Because your culture taught you that strength meant dominance. I'm not going to become what I'm running from just because it's convenient." He pulled out his combat knife and began cutting vine strands, weaving them into a rough rope. "What are you doing?" "Making sure she doesn't die but can't follow us easily." He bound Vrath'kar's limbs, not tightly enough to cause damage, but securely. Then he activated his emergency beacon. "Your people will pick up that signal within a day. They'll find you, and when they do, you can tell them whatever you want." He leaned close. "But you might want to think about what you saw here. About a human and a Drevath working together. About strength that doesn't require dominance." He stood, shouldered his pack, and turned to Shakara. "Let's go." They ran through the jungle as night fell. Derek's shoulder throbbed with every step, but he pushed through it. When they finally stopped, hours later, in a defensible cave system, they collapsed together. Shakara tended his wounds. "You spared her," she said quietly. "Why?" "Because killing her would have made us the same as the people you're running from, and because maybe she'll think about what happened here." Shakara's hands stilled on his bandages. "You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the most foolish." "Can it be both?" That got a laugh from her. She finished the bandaging, then sat back. Through their forming bond, Derek could feel her emotions, exhaustion, worry, and something warmer. "The extraction point is half a day from here," she said. "We can reach it by midday tomorrow. And then you decide your people will come for you. You can go home, pretend none of this happened. Or I can choose this, choose you." Derek reached out, traced one of the gold patterns on her arm. "That's not much of a choice, Shakara. I made it 3 days ago." She caught his hand, held it against her skin. "My people will hunt us. Yours will want to study me. We'll be fugitives on both sides. Then we go somewhere neither side controls. The outer rim is full of places that don't ask questions." He pulled her closer. "I've spent 2 years running from myself. I'm tired of running, but if I have to run, I'd rather do it with someone who makes me feel alive again." Shakara kissed him, and this time when the bond flared, Derek felt it lock into place. The connection solidified, became permanent, and suddenly he could sense her with perfect clarity. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. "In my language, there's no word for this. The closest translation is soul bond. You're part of me now." "I love you too," Derek said. They made love in the cave as the jungle sang its deadly lullaby around them. Derek explored every inch of her alien body. Shakara was careful with her claws, gentle with her strength, And when she fed on his fear, the vulnerability of intimacy, the terror of opening himself completely, it was sweet rather than draining. Afterward, they lay tangled together, Derek's head on her chest, listening to the dual rhythm of her hearts. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we get to the extraction point. My team will come. We'll tell them the mission went sideways, that I'm taking personal leave. Then we disappear into the outer rim and figure out how to build a life that doesn't fit either of our species' expectations." Just like that. Just like that. He propped himself up to look at her. "Unless you have a better plan?" "No," she said, and through the bond he felt her contentment, her peace. "No better plan. Just you and me against a galaxy that doesn't understand us." "Sounds perfect." She laughed. "You're insane." "So I've been told." He kissed her again. "But you chose me anyway." "I did," she agreed. "I really did." They slept curled together, two predators from different worlds who'd found something neither had been looking for. Outside, the jungle continued its eternal hunt, indifferent to the small revolution occurring in the cave. But inside, in the warmth of their bond and the strength of their choice, Derek and Shakara had created something new. Something their peoples would call impossible. Something they would call love. Morning light filtered through the cave entrance in shafts of gold and green. Derek woke to find Shakara already awake, watching him. Through their bond, he felt her mixture of contentment and anxiety. "Second thoughts?" he asked. "1,000 of them," she admitted. "But none that change what I want." They broke camp efficiently. Derek's shoulder ached where Vrath'kar's claws had torn through muscle, but the bleeding had stopped, and Shakara's field dressing would hold. The jungle seemed different this morning, less hostile somehow. Or maybe Derek was different, no longer alone in his head. Through the bond, he could feel Shakara's presence like a second heartbeat. They moved through the terrain with practiced synchronicity. When they encountered a swarm of stinger flies, Derek laid down suppressing fire while Shakara guided them through. When the ground gave way beneath Derek's feet, revealing a pit trap, Shakara caught him. "I've got you," she said, and through the bond Derek felt the absolute certainty of that statement. By midday, they crested a ridge and saw it, the extraction zone, a cleared plateau that bore the scorch marks of previous landings. Derek's beacon was still active. "They'll be here within the hour," he said. Shakara stood beside him, and for the first time since they'd met, Derek sensed real fear from her. Not of danger, but of what came next. "Hey," he said, taking her hand. "We don't have to do this. If you want to stay here—" "No," she interrupted. "I've been alone long enough. Whatever comes next, we face it together." "Together," Derek agreed. They waited on the plateau. Through the bond, he felt her processing everything that had happened, everything that would happen. The ship appeared first as a dot in the sky, then resolved into the familiar lines of a Condor-class extraction vessel. It descended with military precision. The ramp lowered and 3 figures emerged. Torres came first, rifle ready but not aimed. Riley flanked him left, Vasquez right. Then they saw Shakara. 3 rifles came up as one. Torres's voice crackled over external speakers. "Rourke, step away from the hostile." "She's not hostile," Derek called back, not moving. "She's with me. Rourke, we have standing orders regarding unidentified xenoforms. Step away so we can neutralize the threat." Derek stood slowly, deliberately placing himself between the rifles and Shakara. "You want to neutralize her, you go through me first, sir." The tableau held for a long moment. Then Torres raised his hand, and Riley and Vasquez lowered their weapons fractionally. Torres climbed down from the ramp, approaching with careful steps. He stopped 3 meters away, lifted his visor. His eyes went from Derek to Shakara and back again. "You want to explain what happened to your mission, Sergeant?" Extraction went sideways, ship crashed. Local predator turned out to be sapient and friendly. Derek kept his voice level. "She guided me through hostile terrain when I would have died otherwise. I owe her my life." "And the injuries?" "Different predator, not friendly. Shakara and I dealt with it." Torres looked at Shakara directly. "You speak standard." "I do," she replied. Torres nodded slowly. And you want to leave this planet? Why? Because staying means dying alone, leaving means living. Her hand found Derek's. Your soldier offered me a choice. I'm choosing life. Torres's eyes dropped to their joined hands. You know what the brass will do if you bring her back to controlled space, he said to Derek. They'll want her quarantined, studied. It won't be pleasant. I know, Derek said. That's why I'm not coming back. I'm taking personal leave, extended personal leave, indefinitely. I'm done, Torres. I've been done since the unit died. I've just been going through the motions. He squeezed Shakara's hand. Now I've found something that does mean something, someone who makes me want to be more than just a survivor. Torres was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned and walked back to the ship, disappearing inside. Riley and Vasquez exchanged glances but held position. Derek felt Shakara's fear spike through the bond. He's going to order them to take us by force, she said quietly. No, Derek replied, though he wasn't entirely sure. Torres is a good man. Torres reappeared, carrying a pack that he tossed to Derek. It landed heavy at his feet. Emergency supplies, 6 months of rations, medical gear, currency chips, should be enough to get you started wherever you're going. Derek stared at him. Sir, I've known you for 8 years, Rourke. I knew you before the blast, and I knew you after. I watched you bury yourself in that conditioning lie, watched you pretend you were fine when you were breaking apart inside. Torres gestured at Shakara. I don't know what she is, but I can see what she's done for you. You're standing different. Whatever happened out there, it fixed something that was broken. I can't just abandon my contract. You're not. I'm reporting that you died in the field. Hostile action, no body recovered. You'll get a memorial service, and you'll be free to build whatever life you want. Torres, if they find out you lied, they won't, and if they do, I'll handle it. He extended his hand. You saved my life in Kandahar. You've earned this, Rourke. Take it. Derek took his hand. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just live well. Find somewhere quiet. Make something that matters. Torres glanced at Shakara. Both of you. He walked back to the ship, paused at the ramp. For what it's worth, I think she's good for you. Anyone who can make you look that alive again is worth keeping around. The ship's engines powered up, and within minutes they were gone, leaving Derek and Shakara alone with a pack full of supplies and an entire galaxy of possibilities. Derek shouldered the pack, turned to Shakara. Ready? For what? Everything, nothing, whatever comes next. He pulled her close, kissed her thoroughly. We've got 6 months of supplies and no destination. Where do you want to go? Through the bond, he felt her fear transforming into excitement, into hope. Somewhere neither of our peoples will find us. Somewhere we can be ourselves without hiding. She looked up at him. Somewhere we can build something new. I know a place, Derek said. Outer Rim Station called Freehold. No questions asked. They don't care what you are as long as you can pay. Sounds perfect. They walked down from the plateau hand in hand. The jungle sang around them, but it wasn't a threat anymore. Just background noise in a universe that had suddenly become vast with possibility. What will we do there? Shakara asked. Whatever we want. Maybe I'll start a security consulting business. You could hunt. We could explore. I'm always afraid, Derek said. I know, Shakara replied, and through the bond he felt her love for him. That's why you're perfect. They reached the jungle's edge as the sun began its descent. Behind them, a planet that had tried to kill them both. Ahead, a ship waiting to take them somewhere new. Between them, a bond that defied both their species' understanding. Derek looked at Shakara, at this fierce huntress who'd chosen compassion over culture, who'd seen his greatest weakness and called it his greatest strength. I love you, he said. Good, Shakara said, pulling him into a kiss. Because my kind mate for life, you're stuck with me now, Rourke. Best thing that ever happened to me. They boarded the shuttle Derek had hidden days ago. It wasn't much, barely rated for atmosphere to orbit, but it would get them to the nearest jump gate. From there, the outer rim. From there, whatever life they chose to build. As they broke atmosphere and the planet fell away, Derek felt Shakara's presence in his mind, steady and warm. Felt her hope for their future, her trust in his choices, her absolute certainty that together they could face whatever the galaxy threw at them. He'd started this mission broken and alone, pretending strength he didn't feel. He was ending it whole and partnered, accepting weakness as the foundation of true courage. The stars stretched out before them, infinite and inviting. "Ready for the next adventure?" he asked. Shakara smiled, her gold patterns glowing bright. "Always." They jumped to hyperspace together, two predators from different worlds, bound by choice and biology and love, heading into an uncertain future with nothing but each other and the absolute conviction that together they were stronger than they'd ever been alone. Behind them, a galaxy that couldn't understand what they'd become. Ahead of them, a life they'd forge on their own terms. Between them, a bond that would never break.